Many people reacting to the Ivan Toney chat that he did on this thing, the Stephen Bartlett Diary of a CEO podcast. He says gambling in football, a bit of a grey area. Well, not too grey as far as Ivan's concerned now, because Toney admitted to 232 breaches of FA betting rules over a period of 5 seasons between February 2017 and January 2021. Many people getting in touch this morning. Very immature statement from Ivan Toney. Just been listening. Needs to grow up. He's got to take responsibility for his own actions, regardless of whether he feels his punishment is harsh or not, says Luke. Of course, West Ham took on Chelsea yesterday. One player for West Ham yesterday, the Brazilian Lucas Paqueta. And of course, he has seen a potential move to Manchester City collapse for now. On Friday, the same Paqueta was left out of Brazil's squad for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers so that he could, quote, sort out his problems. What are his problems? An investigation also said to involve the world governing body FIFA is believed to centre around bets placed in Brazil on yellow cards awarded against Lucas Paqueta. Yesterday, our own Alex Crook got in front of West Ham boss David Moyes and raised that very subject with Moyes.
Did you think it showed today how it was affected? I thought 65,000 supporters were on their feet clapping him most of the game because of his performance, his levels, his energy. He's a top player and he's a really good boy, so he played great today for us, and no surprise with the penalty. Maybe if Said had been onside, might have taken it, but Lucas took it brilliantly well.
Will he definitely stay now, Lucas, beyond the transfer window?
You should answer that question. I don't know at the moment.
So David didn't want to get too embroiled in that, clearly, with Alex, although Alex quite right to ask him. Ironically, Simon, it's reported West Ham shirt sponsors Betway were responsible for reporting the suspicious betting patterns. But, I mean, further down the line, Paqueta's going to have questions to answer.
Yeah. I mean, we have to look internally at the sport and determine how serious the sport thinks it's itself. It's very difficult. I do understand the difficulty that managers have because they are managing players, they want to get the best from the players, and their jobs are scrutinised by the very nature of what they produce on a Saturday afternoon. But unless you're going to get the industry itself condemning this kind of behaviour and having the courage of its convictions to do so, then you're not going to get the buy-in that you possibly need. You're going to get these sort of explanations behind Ivan Toney's school of thinking, because there are times in football there is a cultural and moral vacuum about what is right and what is wrong, and how a player can be gotten away with things because he's a good player. And as a result of that clears all the other decks. David Moyes will have a different private view than he'll have a media view, because he doesn't want to give the media an opportunity to elevate his opinion, elevate his comments, and turn it into everything else besides David Moyes' job as a football manager to get West Ham winning on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So he's in that particular space. But ultimately, it is their responsibility to make sure these players understand the value of their behaviour both off the pitch and on the pitch. I don't go with Martin's explanation about the fact that it's not particularly meaningful that you are able to bet in sport as long as it's not the sport or the game that you're participating in or against your side. Because whether we like it or not, rules are rules. And I don't think it's much of a sacrifice for footballers doing a job, whether it's at the bottom of the pyramid in League One or at the top of the pyramid in the Premier League, playing and doing a job that most people would probably bite their arms off at the shoulder to be able to do, to have to give up their opportunity to bet in exchange for a wonderful career that might take them to ridiculous halcyon heights of achievement, or at least give them this wonderful outcome of doing something that most people would only suggest they can dream of doing. I don't think that's an unfair trade-off. And too many times in football, it is people's behaviour is excused by their talents. It's a very difficult balance to strike. But if you want characters, if you want leaders, if you want men like Roy Keane that will overcome adversity, and not everything that comes out of Roy's mouth I agree with, but as a player and as a captain, I think he was without peer. That's because he had substance and character and discipline and respect and all of those things. And there is at times, all of that gets washed away by the amount of money, the amount of people that are hanging around you that profit off you, and ultimately the culture of saying, well, you're a good player, so we'll let that go away.
I mean, it's almost ironic,
I
think you're confusing the two. You're confusing Roy Keane's ability to go and lead a team into, you started off by talking about the betting aspect of it. Now, the betting aspect is this, that if you, simply because you have a fine lifestyle, and we're talking about Premier League players, we're not talking about 4th Division players, we're talking about, then that should excuse them from having a bet in anything. So in other words, somebody can't go up and have 2 shillings each way in the Grand National or something like this.
Not if that's the rules of the industry that you signed
right,
up to
okay.
be in.
Well, if that's the rule, I'm getting back to it. Yeah, I did say that I thought that the rules were draconian. But I did say once they're established, you've got to stick with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally in agreement with that. All I'm saying is that initially I thought they were really draconian and they're covered. So in other words, so let's say some sort of businessman, let's say like yourself, done very, very well in business, and you have a really nice lifestyle, or assumingly.
Yeah.
And then suddenly somebody says to you, well, because of that, there, you're better not having a bet,
But when you say draconian, you are looking at the fibre of a sport and the integrity of a sport being potentially questioned by people's ability to be able to participate in betting because of the reasons that people are able to influence outcomes. You can't have any grey areas in sport. It's not draconian. It's just realistic.
But not if you're involved. Not if you're not involved in some particular sport that you would have known.
Or you have influence. One of your mates is playing for another side. And
I'm not talking about. I'm not. Stay. I'll get back to my point. The rules have now been made. Whether I agree with them or didn't agree with them in the first place, I thought that they were draconian. I keep saying this here, but leave it at that there. Absolutely right. Abide by the rules. Those rules are read out to you, I think, at the start of every single season again. They're reiterated to people, and you have it at the football club. So there's no excuse. I'm not giving anybody an excuse to do this. That's all I'm saying. I'm conflating Roy Keane because I'm talking about character. Yeah.
Not necessarily Roy Keane the individual. I'm talking about characters. You want men that can stand up for diversity. You want men that can learn to do as they're told. Before you want someone to give orders, they've got to be able to take orders first. And the bottom line is that Roy Keane comes as an example, not because I admire everything he does, but because that's a man with character. And a lot of these kids in this day and age now are given far too much, far too quickly, far too easily, without the reality of actually earning some of it.
I'm in total agreement with that. Absolutely total agreement. But again, I'm talking about, don't confuse the two things about. Absolutely.
I'm not confusing.
Okay.
What am I confusing?
Don't confuse two things.
Don't confuse the betting thing without somebody's drive and determination. There might be one or two players in the world
but why not?
who have
But Martin, you're asked
who
to do
are
something.
driving.
Okay, but what you're doing is you're saying the rules are draconian, and that's fine. I accept your position on that.
Right.
But you're told to do something. Yeah. So by definition, a character of someone that accepts their responsibilities, accept the obligations that they have, and doesn't do it, is someone that has the character that I think will give you a leader, that will give you someone that you can rely on, someone that you can trust. All the very things that you as managers suggest that you need in your dressing room on a weekly, daily and hourly basis. So when you've got someone that doesn't do that and thinks ultimately these rules don't apply to me, that is a reference to their character.